Are you sick of sucking at Dragon Ball FighterZ? Feel like you're not getting enough out of your training sessions? Want nipples as big as Manakas? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then this is the video for you. Hey guys, BananasFinest here, and welcome to another Dragon Ball FighterZ video. Today I'll be talking to you about some things that you can do to improve your training game. What I mean by this is optimizing using the training mode. Just a couple of tips I've found to be very helpful to help me out with specific things. So without further ado, let's hop right in. Okay, so tip number one is to make sure that you don't have your key charge all the way up to 7. And what I mean by this is, as you can see right here, whenever I reset, I have that my key bars are set at 3 bars. You can do pretty much any number. I just would recommend leaving it somewhat low, unless you're practicing something that specifically requires a certain amount of key. And you can change that here. You can also change if you want it to recover or not. But the reason that I have it set at 3, I used to practice with it at 7, just because I was like, I always want to have 7 bars so that when I'm messing around, I can just throw some supers out or whatever. I always have it available. This is supposed to be on right. But as I've started to work on some more combos and things, it's really important to actually have this number lower. That way you can see how much bar your combos are generating, which is actually a super important part of, making your own combos or following combos from other people, is you want to know how much bar that you're going to have available at the end. Because who knows, you might be starting off with 0 bar in the corner, and it's important to know if the combo you're doing is going to generate, only half a bar, or I'm not even sure that's possible, or 3 bars or something crazy like that. So the lower you have this number, the more you can figure out, okay, so this specific combo generates about, let's see, okay, so that got me up to 7 bars, and now I know how much I have to burn. And then you can also mess around with, okay, so now that I know that this combo generates 2 bars, now if I start at 5 bars, how many supers can I throw it at the end? So stuff like that. So that's something I found to be very useful, because sometimes you throw out combos that require more bar and you don't actually know if you're going to have enough by the end of them. So it's really important to know how much bar, like the max bar you could generate from these combos. Okay, the next tip is about block strings. So for those of you that don't know, block strings are like the thing that you do to your opponent while they're blocking, that you want to do to keep them on block stun the entire time. The point is to try to make as airtight of a block string as you can, so that they can't even press in a single button. So now, this is really important, because when I was first learning the game, I had some things that I thought were airtight, that definitely weren't, that my opponent could easily mash after and beat me. So turning this feature on, if we go into enemy settings, go down to counterattack, and I usually put on light just because that's like the quickest option that your opponent has to mash out of a block string. So when you throw that on, so at the end here, he smacks me. But up until that point, I now know that that was a true block string because he wasn't able to mash out of it. So that's something, it's a really useful tool for figuring out, how much recovery time certain moves have, and for generating true block strings, to make sure that your opponent can't even press a button in the meantime. Okay, so this next tip involves some more enemy blocking. Once you've found a block string that you're really comfortable with, that you think is pretty airtight, I go ahead and set the counterattack settings to off again, and then I have my opponent set to guard all, but guard style random. You can also mess around with the poses, standing if you want them to block mostly high, crouch if you want them to block mostly low. And what this does basically is that it ensures that your opponent isn't going to block everything. See right there, he wasn't blocking low. So what I want to do, I dropped my combo, but what I want to do is, the reason I'm doing this is because I want to be able to convert off of any part of my block string into a full combo. Because what you don't want to happen is you're like, okay, you've memorized a block string, but then you end up catching them on like a low, say, but you just carry out your block string and you miss an opportunity to perform a big combo. So by doing this, you kind of make it, you create that randomness to where you could catch them on any hit. So you need to be prepared to convert off of any hit of your block string into a full combo. So doing this allows you to do that. Okay, this next tip is pretty simple, but it's something I think is pretty important as a beginner, and that is starting combos off with light attacks. And so why I think this is important is that when I was starting out in Dragon Ball FighterZ, I looked up some combo videos, and almost all of them, they always start with some sort of medium attack, right? Because that's how you get the most damage out of your combos. For those of you that don't know, when you start off with a lighter attack, it scales a lot heavier. So meaning that you get less damage overall, as opposed to if you started with a medium attack. So my problem when I started is I would always start things. I'd always start, like when I'd practice combos, I'd always start it with a down medium into a medium, and I kind of got in the habit of doing that. But as we know, you can't really create a good block string that's just down medium medium. That's not very effective. Usually they start with some sort of light attack combination. So that being said, you need to be prepared for, if I catch them with these light attacks, I need to know how much damage my combo is actually going to do with the light attacks. I can't always expect to get that medium damage. So if you always think, ooh, this combo does 50% or whatever, but that involves always starting with a medium, then you're not going to know how much the combo does with light attacks. And also, I found, I don't know the exact properties of this, but sometimes depending on how many hits you get in, starting with a light attack will change the nature of your overall combo, and like it'll cause it to drop in certain places that it normally wouldn't if you started with a medium. I think that has something to do with like the max amount of hits. I'm not entirely sure, but this is why it's important to mess around with this. Make sure that you know how much how much damage your combos are doing if you're just starting with a light attack. Alright, and for the fifth and final tip, this is something that I used a lot as a beginner, and I still use now, not quite as often, but it's something that's really helpful, and it just popped up in the bottom right. You can actually search for matches in the background while you're in training mode. This is something I wasn't fully aware of, but when I found it out, it's something I found super helpful. Just because like when I was first starting out, there's a bunch of combos and stuff that I wasn't fully familiar with, but I still wanted to get in some online matches. So what this does is it allows you to stay fresh. You can practice things that you still feel like you need to practice while still searching for a match. So now it's like, okay, if I feel ready, I can go ahead and accept the match. If not, I can just cancel out and keep fighting. And you can even, from here, change, you can pause it or you can cancel it. If you just kind of want to break, you can do that from here as well. So you don't have to like feel like, oh, I have to leave training mode to go do a match. You don't have to do that. You can stay in training mode, mess around with stuff, and then get into your match. So this is a way to just kind of optimize your time, stay frosty while you're waiting for matches, and practice in training mode in the meantime. Alright guys, so that brings us to the end of this video. I hope you found these tips helpful. It's nothing too crazy, just some small things that have helped me out over my course of playing this game. If you found any of these tips helpful, please leave a like, comment, and or subscribe. I'd love to know if I helped you out. And oh, nice drop combo to finish things off. Anyways, I'll see you guys next time. Peace.